Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony Cockmo with Civil CAD Learning Solutions, and welcome to the Q&A with AutoCAD Expert Elite members and industry experts. So I have a small group of panelists here, and allow them to introduce themselves. So we'll start to the right here.
I'm Christopher Fugit. I'm an Expert Elite, and I'm a blogger for Civil 3D Reminders.
Todd Rogers, Expert Elite, BIM Manager for Walter P. Moore, and Secretary for Augie.
Joe Solis, founder and consultant for BIM Optimize and Frampton and Associates.
And I'm Tony Cockmo, President of Civil CAD Learning Solutions, also an Expert Lead and also a group network leader. So today it's going to be a quick, maybe 40-minute session where we're going to allow the attendees to come in and ask questions about maybe AC products from Revit, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, InfraWorks. So if you have any questions, go ahead and pop it on the chat or questions, and we'll do our best to try to answer those questions. We do have a couple topics we're going to talk about here. You can listen in. Earlier today, we were out during lunch networking and talking about standards, and we want to kind of pick up from there and talk about kind of the company standards. How do you double check company standards and stuff? So if y'all want to,
sure,
if y'all want to step in and talk about it. So
yeah, I think where we started was the fact that we have all kinds of data to mine in Civil 3D and in Revit and all these different BIM applications, and it's great that we can mine data and send it out to another platform to pull intelligence out of it. But the real question is obviously, what are the key action indicators? What kinds of things are we looking for? Model maintenance is a big deal, right? Making sure that the data is not causing more problems for other users. So model maintenance, regular model maintenance, is a topic that we've talked about quite a bit. I think that's what got us into the subject. And so I guess the question that was posed is, in Civil 3D specifically, what are the kinds of things that users should, or BIM managers should, look for? What kind of things should we maintain? What kind of, if you were to pull data out of it and send it to, let's say, Power BI, what immediate indicators would you want to know about a file without having to open it up, and anything along those lines?
Well, first thing is we have an SOP in place, and it's kind of obvious when a user doesn't follow the SOP.
Yeah.
If the SOP is not followed, and of course you got to get involved with it to find out what's jacked up, what's not jacked up, what's usable, what's not usable, and it's almost, you almost have to get into the drawing to find out. And the initial fire up of the drawing tells the whole story. How long it takes to open, what's loading when it's opening, and then that usually tells the initial story.
Keeping your eye on the
and keeping your eye on that command line, man. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's
if you want to describe what the SOP, if some people don't understand what the SOP is, if you want to tell them what that is.
So that's standard operation procedure. So that's basically what we put into a format, and each user should follow that format. And we do that for a reason. If you don't follow the format, then obviously you're going to have issues on down the line.
Yeah. When I did CAD management for 12 years, that was one of the things I looked at. It's like, hey, are they following all layer management? If I get in there and there's an extra 50 layers they brought in from another CAD drawing, extra attachments. Okay, why is there an extra 4 or 5 extra attachments on there? So PDF attachments, hey, if you're not using it anymore, let's go ahead and remove it. Sometimes we'll use it for preliminary development, just to sketch something or trace something. But then if you're done with it, go ahead and attach it. Same thing for if I'm attaching a landscape plan or architectural plan or MEP plan. Usually I'll extract it with the copy command, what I need, and then move it out of there. I'm done. I don't want to make the drawing bigger. Definitely don't want to attach it as an attachment, more of an overlay, but that's something I looked at as a CAD manager. Say, I'm getting there. Why is this file so big? Okay. In the past, I was telling the guys, I actually got into an architectural drawing and they had 50 XREFs,
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, that's why your drawing took 5 minutes to open up. It had 50 XREF to load, and that's why it's so sluggish. So, CAD management, going through CAD files and purging things you don't really need in there anymore. So I always told the guys, hey, once the plans are signed, sealed, do a purge and purge everything out.
Oh, absolutely.
purge the blocks, layers, everything that you don't need. So now I know there's a style, feature that you can go through in Civil 3D where it looks for any styles that was not part of the company styles. So you can run it and it will go and tell you, hey, either you need to update your style with the latest new update style, or you need to remove the ones that are not part of it no more, or you can revise it, So, and then you got the CAD management app tool too to manage over your CAD drawings. So I think it's important that every company, engineering and architectural, look at these files and make sure that it's not getting bloated with unnecessary items, So.
And you end up finding out that it's a problem when at the wrong time, right? When in the last push.
Exactly.
And that's
when
where
something's due.
Right, exactly. Why did it crash? And
Yep.
so it's good that you have those SOPs in place, I think on the Revit side, and you guys are talking on the Civil 3D side, on the Revit side, there's certainly things that there should be, our SOP has some pretty standard stuff that any user can do. But I also think on the Revit side, it's important to have your higher level BIM managers also, because some of these are not just checklists, go and purge. It's not just a go and purge. In fact, you don't really want to purge Revit that way, but sometimes you got to use the gray matter between the ears to make a decision based on something. I was thinking, in terms of like one of the things I know I would like to see without looking at the file, opening the file itself, is the shared system being used, right? Are the coordinates being used? And if I know that my B team set it up and it's being used, I probably want to go in that file. If I know my A team set it up and it's being used, I probably won't care about that. So if I had that just indicator right at me, I could oversee all the projects that are going on throughout the company. So from that side of things, I think I would add that to a higher level standard operating procedure for my BIM managers.
So I was actually today years old when I learned you can purge from Revit. Did not know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Dangerous.
It's mainly because all the buttons, all the items that are not available are checked for you by default. So it's one of those things that you just, you don't really teach it at all.
Yeah.
But always hit check none first. So.
Do you have an input on that, I guess, on the public side, government?
So Florida DOT has a process where the delivery, they have a program that goes through and verifies all of the layers and all the drawings and all the files are named correctly, and you need to hit like a percentage. Mm-hmm. And so in my job, one of my next big projects is to implement that where I work, a format of that, and then check the data. In Civil 3D, a lot of users create alignments and then they create data shortcuts. And then they do a save as of the drawings. And sometimes they keep it in the same location. So Civil 3D goes and finds that bad alignment. And then you create a new alignment for a new drawing, and you now have two instances of that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go in and double check and make sure that all of the data is using the same data and we don't have any rogue alignments out there to kind of save the people. Yeah. And then I'm hopefully put it on a server so it can go do that automatically. And so every month or every 2 months, it can go and run it. And then we can use that as a tool, as a management tool, where the managers can actually see what their users are doing. Because a lot of times the managers or the project managers, they aren't CAD savvy. And if you don't give them a metric to hit, they won't know to go to their employees and talk about it. So hopefully we can put a process in place where we can track what the users are doing and then give management a tool to then coach their employees to make sure that they hit that target that we set.
Is that a macro?
That's a good point.
It'll be like the batch processor, but it'll go through and go and grab all that data.
Okay. Nice.
So kind of make it supercharged.
Yeah, I like it. Good stuff.
I guess another question I've seen more and more viewers are logging in there. How do y'all handle third-party files? A good example, I had one time, we got a CAD file from the architect, and I always tell, as a CAD standard, don't just copy and paste it into our civil drawing. Go and explode it. Don't just copy the block and explode it, convert it to our layer, and bring it over or something. And sometimes a brand new drafter doesn't know that. He's a brand new employee, and he just copies a block over from a footprint of a building, and next thing it crashes the drawing. But it saved it, and then every time you open a drawing, it continuously crashes. And I've actually seen that several times where it just didn't like the AutoCAD, the AutoCAD architectural block, and it just kept constantly crashing. So what kind of implementations do you have in your company to control that, you know, say, hey, we got a third-party drawing from outside of our company. What's y'all's kind of workflow for that?
So we deal with that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We got a couple of list routines that we run that takes certain objects and places them on our layers. Usually the first thing we do is explode everything in the drawing.
Yep.
You know, even when we get surveyor stuff, we have a 2D topo file and a 3D topo file. So the 2D topo file is the one that's XREF'd into the drawing, because
just pavement, line work, sidewalk, fence.
well,
layers.
it's everything exploded,
Everything
even
exploded.
Kogo points.
Okay.
Yeah, even
Kogo,
Kogo
okay.
points. Yeah. So it tends to make a cleaner drawing when you're XREFing it in, and
Yep.
it works faster.
Yeah.
So that's how we handle
Okay.
over there. Yeah.
How about Caltrans? You deal with third party?
We don't do that, but I have a customer
Mhm.
who's a structural engineer and he gets the AutoCAD or the architecture
Mhm.
drawings. And so for him, I created a tool that'll allow him to select a layer in the architect's drawings
Yeah.
and I'll move it over to the right-hand side.
Mhm.
So he can easily inspect what's in there and then pick which layer he wants to
Yeah.
change it to. And it'll save it to a text file. So if he moves it over and see it's all toilets, he can put it on the appropriate layer.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the tool put everything back together.
Mhm.
And at the end of it, he's got like a great starting point for the next time he gets to the drawing.
Yeah.
He's just got to run it. It'll go and make those conversions. And then if he sees something that's not correct, he can just run the command again to move all the objects on that layer over.
Okay.
And so he can quickly see what's changed, what's not, how they changed their standards, and then quickly come up and figure out where everything is and make a usable drawing.
Okay, nice. Yeah, one of the workflows I had when I was the CAD manager in another company is, okay, if I had the same surveyor, but they didn't want to use our survey layers, you know, even if we requested, can you use our survey layer? They want to use their own because they have different clients. So I just tell them, use the same layers every single time when you send it to us. I would create a layer translator
Yeah.
file template and then convert it. So I tell them, give me the point file. So the point file will automatically convert it to my blocks, my Kogo points in Civil 3D, my survey tool. And then I'll just do their layer translator for their line work and just copy and paste, I'm done. So within 5 minutes or less, I'm done. I've already copied over their line work. It's already converted to our layers, our colors. And then the points came in the right block for fire hydrant, fire poles, and then I'm done, you know. The hard part is some companies never use the same surveyor, and then where it gets really, really difficult. Do you want to spend the time converting all those layers, or you're just going to say, I'm just going to make everything one color, one, you know, and say, we'll keep their layers. But the problem is when you already have layers set up in your sheets, and now you have a whole 100 new layers that got brought in. Now you're spending time in every single open plan sheet, turning off layers from the survey because you didn't have that survey layers and stuff. So that's a tough battle, you know. I know sometimes you can enforce it to the layer, to the survey company that no, these are our standard. They have to be on this layer when you provide it to us in the contract. You know?
Yeah.
So sometimes you can do that. You can put it in the contract. If you want to do our survey, you have to use these survey layers.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Otherwise
That
you're creating
way we
more
ain't
work.
spending a whole day, because back in the day, I remember working for a company. We literally spent a whole day converting stuff over, you know, before we realized layer translator and stuff like that. But big project, big subdivision and stuff, just cleaning up layers and blocks and stuff, converting their blocks to our blocks. So, but now I was telling them, just use the layer translator, use their points, just give me a CSV file or a text file, and I convert, and I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, so, but
Yeah. From the Revit side, you know, it's similar, but you know, a little different. Of course, different based applications. And for Revit, you know, a lot of times, you know, whether you're sending, you know, it's like we do with typical AutoCAD stuff. Still, most companies, if they're not using BIM 360, we're automatically linking stuff. We're not using a cloud service like a Banjura across companies or across departments, branches, that is. Then you are sending them the entire model. And so this Revit file contains everything. You know, it's the sheets, it's all your blocks. And going back to the Purge idea, sometimes we have stuff in there that we don't want to purge because we might use later, but you're having to share it early in the process.
Sure.
So what happens is firms, especially if you have somebody who's kind of newer to the company, they will just go send file. So now you've just delivered everything. And so what happens if the recipient is also green, they will link in that file, and it's the entire file. So what we suggest upon sending it or even receiving it whichever direction is that we do like a clean, and I call it scrub, but we developed an app called Scrub It, and literally it's just to automate something that would be a manual process.
Right.
And it's really nothing impressive in terms of coding. It's just to make sure that folks know, hit this button before you transmit. And it will get rid of what's not supposed to be there, keep, your company's IP, right, out of other people's hands. File transmission storage is a lot lower. So if you have a file that's 100 meg, I'd rather send a 25 meg file than a 100 meg file, and have that linked in every time. So that's our process to your question, is to make sure the files are scrubbed before we send it. And again, if you're using like a BIM 360 or Pangura among your company, well, you don't need to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So, right.
All right, so I guess the next question I have is updates. How do y'all handle updates? Are you waiting for just ignoring the updates, just waiting for the next release of the version of the software, or do you just self-test as a CAD or BIM manager and then wait a month before you release it company-wide? So what's y'all's current workflow for that? Hot fixes and service packs, all that stuff that comes on the Autodesk desktop.
Yeah, so I usually test it for a couple of weeks and then roll it out, which we roll it out via email. There's a couple of ways you could do it, but it's
everybody's got different ways to roll it out, company-wide or office-wide.
Right, so it's usually just email blast, and then you got to stay on top of everybody and make sure they install it and all that jazz. But it usually takes the whole army to really test it, because I don't do production.
Yeah.
And I don't see the things that they see when I'm testing the updates. So then the bad stuff happens, and it's like, oh gosh, well, let me roll back this and test and see if it's the update that's affected. And it usually happens that way.
And
so
it's
then
hard to catch all. It's hard to do a full test.
It is. It really is.
Because you're testing every single feature
in every scenario.
You can't
exactly.
really take every single feature,
exactly.
every single workflow. Just all you can do
Just
is go off
wait.
what they fixed and say, okay, let me see
how important
it.
is
Okay, good.
it?
But did they break anything else? You can't catch everything. And that's why you have to rely on the designers to make sure they tell you. Sometimes they won't tell you. They'll just create their own little workaround. And you're hoping they communicate with a CAD manager, BIM manager, or support team. And say, hey, I saw an issue. This is can we fix this? So Chris?
Yeah, I have a team of 8 people who help me out test stuff, and so we go through our manuals. We have like 5 or 6 manuals for Civil 3D, and we go through and make sure that the manuals at least work. So when we get into the classroom settings, the program works as expected, or the best it can. And so that's our kind of approach. And then we do take like a month or 2 to review it and wait before we push it to see if any other users report any issues and to make sure that it works within our environment amongst those 8 people.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of similar. My situation is a little bit different. We have a small team, so but I do have clients who are 800 around the United States. So I see how they handle it there and have some input on that. And one of the parts of success that I see at large companies is the use of Software Center. So you're still relying on the end user to go and hit the update, because I can tell you, like within the past few months, I know I've seen Revit doesn't always work well in central file situations when it doesn't have the same build, the same version, different builds. So that's kind of like checkbox number 1. You guys have a problem. And it always seems to be a problem at the push when you add those 2 more bodies to the central file. So that's like the first thing, right? So on top of Software Center, you could add a identifier, like some script that goes either automatically installs it or B just reminds them, hey, you're out of date, kind of thing. But I think Software Center self-service mechanism really helps to keep those teams responsible.
That's actually a good point, because I've always had issues like who did the update, even though I told them to go do the update. Did anybody really go do the update? And
Right.
2 weeks, 4 months later, they have technical problems. They did you do the update? Oh yeah, I forgot. If I had some kind of mechanism, something that I could visually see, I need to go to their desk and tell them to go do the update. I don't know if y'all have anything in place in y'all's company like
We
that.
don't. I mean, obviously we have SCCM, but you have to go through IT to do it. They don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
So it's email,
Yeah.
and email and hope for the best.
So talk about updates then. So do y'all have the actual Autodesk, the desktop app installed in the computer,
We
stopping
do.
them from doing the updates?
No, we don't do that. We're pretty open that way.
Yeah.
And, I luckily have an awesome team of people
Yeah.
that will ask me, there's an update available. Should I install it?
Yeah.
But usually I'll find the update beforehand and say, look, there's an update.
Yep.
Don't install it yet.
Yeah.
So, everybody
Okay.
seems to.
Chris, on
We
that?
have a launcher that we use where I work, and that launches and makes sure that everyone's profile is set up correctly. But it also goes to a website where there's a small PHP script,
Mhm.
and that logs into a text file
Mhm.
what they opened, what version of Civil 3D, what resource file update they have, because we have a resource file that gets pushed that has all of our customizations in it. And so I then created a dashboard where you can open up that text file and it'll sort the data.
Okay.
And then it'll highlight everyone's who's out of date. And so we can then send that with the user information to IT and say, hey, can you please go and update everyone?
Everybody needs this guy.
I didn't create it, I just maintain it.
I just maintain it.
So my former coworker Roger set it all up,
Yeah.
and it works out pretty well.
There's so many great stuff out there. You just gotta find it, and there's always
Yeah.
new stuff somebody creates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Chris always points some great stuff to me, and like, how do you know that was out there?
And it's just like 20 lines of code.
Yeah.
It's
Really?
amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But I guess the next thing is next topic. I would say I'm looking at people online. I don't see any questions coming in yet. Dynamo. Do you think that's just another gimmick where it's like, hey, it's a cool tool, but then it'll just fade away eventually?
No,
You think it's going to be beneficial?
it was beneficial to me.
Yeah.
I actually wrote my first script. It's probably been about a month now,
Mhm.
but it had to deal with the 2020.5 update.
Yeah.
The 2020.5 update. So we're pushing things out to Navisworks to go to BIM, right?
Mhm.
Happens to be if you rotate your drawing, the structures disappear in 3D, right? So whenever you bring that data into Navisworks, there's no structures.
Oh.
They disappear. So we're pushing all this data to,
Yeah.
the BIM platform, and there's no structures.
Mm.
So come to find out, there was a little tweak that you could do by setting the structure sump depth to 0.01,
Little workaround.
and they showed up. So I was like, I think I can do this in Dynamo, and I successfully did in Dynamo. It's real simple, elementary script, but it worked,
Yeah.
and it saved a whole bunch of time. And with Paolo's Civil 3D toolkit that you download for Dynamo,
Yeah.
thing's awesome, man.
So I asked Autodesk when it first rolled out, I said, is this going to be for CAD managers, power users, is this for everybody, even the designers? And they go, it's for everybody. It's like, do you really think that the engineer is going to be happy that your guys are sitting there for an hour trying to write a code? I said, they won't be. As somebody who runs an engineering company, I would be happy if all my guys are sitting there trying to make their own personal Dynamo script when they should be working on the project. I think should be more the CAD manager, BIM manager. And I said, I wouldn't be using that for
I think
the regular users.
the intention
the
is
regular
that-
users should be asking the CAD manager, hey, can
Yeah.
you create the script for you?
Agreed.
Right,
Support for it.
Agreed.
I kind of disagree with Autodesk, but I see their point. But
Well, we took a different approach to that,
yeah.
actually. We encourage the users
Yeah.
to come up with something for us.
Mhm.
you
like an
know?
idea, and
Yeah,
then you
come
go
up
and
with
create
something in Dynamo. It could help us in
Yeah.
production,
Yeah.
And I think the intention behind it all is that it makes it accessible to
Yeah.
everyone. But I think you're right. You have a really good point that within an organization, there is, even if, there's a break-even point to any investment.
Yeah.
So if you do have a guy spending, 160 hours, and then it's going to take you 6 years to get over that little, it just, you don't want everybody spending that time.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't have a payoff, those folks a lot of times aren't
Yeah.
thinking about what that break even is.
Yeah.
So my point is, it's better to have the guy who knows his stuff feed
Yeah.
those ideas, have a mechanism in place where, basically any software implementation, any good software implementation, no matter what the software is, it needs a feedback loop, a strong feedback loop. And Dynamo, and having a Dynamo programmer or somebody who does it really well in your firm,
Yeah.
you must have that strong feedback loop that the users feel encouraged to give
Right.
that feedback so that you can vet what actually is worth it or not. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately for the civil users, it's all brand new now.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes, that's true. It's a fast version,
It's
right?
all brand new,
Brand
yeah.
new,
Yeah.
I mean, one of my previous companies, everybody was on the business Skype, and it was great because everybody would they'd message me, hey, check this real quick. Hey, can you remote in? And that's where you can really coordinate with the CAD manager. Hey, can you script it? Update this Dynamo script real quick for me.
Yeah.
I highly encourage all engineering companies to install some kind of instant messenger within the company, even internal. That way you can constantly message each other, because I thought it was great. I was like, there would be constantly messaging, hey, something's wrong with the block or something, fix it real
Yeah.
quick. Besides an email, because the email I get so many emails, I would just get lost in there or something. So unless you had some kind of support ticket function or
System,
something.
yeah.
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 So, but
We got that.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's free. SpiceWorks.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah, SpiceWorks.
SpiceWorks, yeah. I think somebody mentioned me. I think it was Tom Richardson. He told me about another one that was really great for ticket support
Yeah.
and stuff. I think it was free based on number of users and stuff. So
Mhm.
We wrote one. It's a private app. It's not out on the marketplace, but we did one that it's really simple and dumb, but it just proves the importance of that feedback mechanism.
Yes.
Is the fact that we had a button inside of Revit, and granted you can access it anywhere else, but it's just the reason why I made the button in Revit is simply so that there's no excuse. Right? There's no reason you're in the application, hit this button, type in 3 text boxes, everything else is filled in, and it spits it out to SQL. And now we have a log of not just, and it's not support.
Yeah.
It's process improvement, content needed. This is working, that's not working. And anyway, and Dynamo ideas back to the point. But yeah, the strong feedback loop is a mechanism that is
It's a necessity.
underutilized in our world, I think,
Yeah.
sometimes.
yeah. The only thing I fear is people will start using it for things that's not really necessary for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm gonna see if I can use it. Like, yeah, you could have done it with a simple AutoCAD command or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't try to reinvent the wheel. I talked about it with the guys the other day, but I want to bring it up what I saw on
Like
YouTube.
Placing points
Yeah,
along the
so-
alignment.
Yeah, so, but I see some positives and some negatives about it, just wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that. So, Chris, do you have any thoughts on the Dynamo? Is it going to be beneficial on the public roads side of it?
I took it off the menu.
Yeah.
Just because where I work, they have me.
Yeah.
And I can
So
do anything
you
in
create your
Dynamo
own
that I
custom
can do
Yeah,
in
through an API.
.NET
That's right.
through the
Yeah.
API.
Yeah, so they already got a plus already.
So that's
So we support other groups like
Yep.
surveying, and some of the people in surveying will go and use Dynamo to outline stuff
Mhm.
if they don't want to bug me for whatever reason.
Mhm.
I don't know why. And so they're thinking about using Dynamo to script stuff to see if it's possible,
Yeah.
and then give it to me to convert it into .NET and make it more awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If it like needs dialog boxes,
Yeah.
more interaction, make it a little more intelligent.
Stable. More stable. So I don't think, to your question, I don't think it's going to go away.
Yeah.
Because you have a group of technologists who have the intelligence to understand processes and program, which is required when you're programming. But they're not steeped in coding.
Yeah.
And we're always going to have that. So I think, and then too, it does the, from the building side and the Revit side of things, it does generation, right? You can generate generative models. And then you have process optimization, which we're big on. But the point is that I think it's going to be around for a while, but I still think that firms that become more sophisticated will understand that it's still, there's nothing beats coding and API work.
Yeah.
In terms of those two things. So it's a good middle ground. I think it's going to be around for a while.
Wisconsin DOT uses Dynamo quite a bit, just because they don't have a programmer on staff. And if they want to do the programmer thing, they have to go do a contract. And with government, contracts take so long. So they may have like $100,000 contract to do programming work, but it takes them 4 or 5 months to process it. Where in Dynamo, they can just create it real quick.
And folks have to be careful though too, because in that situation where you have you're using Dynamo for a long period of time, when you have the attrition that will naturally occur,
Yeah.
Dynamo is kind of finicky. It's very finicky. It relies on packages. It needs to be well taken care of in order for it to run smoothly. And the bigger the organization gets, the more distributed things become, the more administration there is. So there's a balance to be had with that. And even if it's easier to make in Dynamo, because from a certain terms of a skill set standpoint,
Yeah.
it's probably just as easy to code it, if not easier. But if it's almost sometimes better from the administration standpoint if you just convert that. So it's great that they have you to be able to,
Yeah.
to just switch it from a Dynamo to an API or to a button kind of a thing.
And there is a app out there that I've heard about that
Mhm.
will go and look on people's computers in your network
Mhm.
and report on what Dynamo scripts they have.
Mm.
So you can then go watch the people
That's
and see
great.
what they're doing, and then maybe
See how often they're
take
using
those
it.
eyes or take those apps and then convert it into something
Yeah.
everyone can use, or
Right.
find something like Tony said, this is a waste of time, this is a better way of doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, not that it's a bad product. Sometimes you're like, well, I could probably do it faster in the old AutoCAD method way. I
Yeah.
found ways, you know. So, I guess the next topic is, you know, what's y'all's current workflow when you're pushing out a brand new software platform you've never used?
It's a good one.
So are you setting up a large amount of training and say, hey, you know, we need this amount of training before we start using this product? You know, how much time are you spending yourself as a CAD and BIM manager before you even have the training? You know, are you spending a whole year to say, hey, I'm going to meet with the project team, say, hey, this is how much productive we'll be if we're going to push a brand new, like if your company now does architecture, now you're going to need architectural guy, and you're going to be, so what do y'all typically do for a brand new product? I mean, that you've never used
So
on there? Even if it's like an add-in, like,
Yeah.
for example, if I was the CAD manager, now I'm going to be teaching vehicle tracking. And we've never used vehicle tracking, we've used AutoTurn, you know, from Transsoft Solutions or something, you know. So what's that current workflow for stuff like that?
So we're actually in development for that right now. You know, we're transitioning over to Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams got some really, really good platforms from within it, like Microsoft Stream. So we're kind of, you know, take a couple steps back. Take, for example, Project Explorer. I'm about to start doing training videos on Project Explorer. Try to keep everything less than 10 minutes because everybody's attention span is this big, right? So do little snippet trainings, push them to our LMS, which hasn't been very successful in the past.
And LMS is
Learning management system, yeah. So it hasn't been very successful because it's kind of hard to navigate. It's Cornerstone, and it's not, we're not too big on it. So we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago how to move all this stuff to Microsoft Stream and put it on our SharePoint site. So the SharePoint site's way better than the LMS stuff. So we're in the process of implementing it this way. So we can then assign like a playlist to somebody.
That's great.
Right, like onboarding, you would have a playlist to go through the standard operating procedures for the company, you know, the training videos for that. If you needed, if you need a refresher on Civil 3D, go to the basic training, and there's a playlist for that. Takes you from, you know, field to finish. You know, so that's how we're doing it, and we'll be implemented soon.
Okay, yeah, I've seen, I haven't tested it out since our company uses Microsoft Teams.
It
Like,
actually,
add-ons and stuff.
with SharePoint, it's fabulous, man.
All our stuff is on SharePoint. All of our documents, drawings are all on SharePoint.
Way to go, man. Way to go.
So one of my companies is all on professional Dropbox, and the other one's on SharePoint. I'm doing a testing, evaluating both of them.
Nice.
Pluses and minuses on both.
Oh,
of them.
sure.
Some things I love on Dropbox, and some things I love on SharePoint.
Sure.
Yeah. How about, because if you
We have an
added-
LMS system that tracks the training, and so everyone's available to sign up for the training. And then for any like custom commands that we create, we always create a help file for it. And then if it merits it, so like if it's a complex command, we'll create a video that describes the process of why it's being done and where it is. And then we don't have it right now, but we started it. Norman Yon and Expert Elite did a class last year that was a .NET class that will open up a web browser.
Yep.
And so we're going to start doing communications through the web browser in AutoCAD in Civil 3D. So every month a tab will open up. It won't be like in your face, but they have to purposely close it. But then we can provide information like here's our new command, here's how you use it,
Kinda like
and provide
Star
them.
Tab.
Exactly.
Nice.
But more customized.
Right. Are you at liberty to say what LMS you all use?
It's an Oracle basis. Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
For having doing implementation since like mid 2000s, for me, it really how we manage it depends on where it is in the stage of the implementation. If it's a software selection, basically where you have a business need, but you're not sure what software to use, then you have to visit with all the players and pull the functional requirements and then do a cross check, right? And I think that's just it's so critical. That's just like a implementation standard practice. And so if you're past that stage and oh, this is the software we're going to use, part of the consideration in the qualifications is how does it get rolled out? Is it harder with this software versus that software? So past that stage, once we know for sure we're going to be using a particular product, then it's like an alpha beta testing, right? Testing internally with the core team, test with a studio, right? With one small team, and then we would have all the kinks rolled out, ironed out for a larger broadcast. Prepare the content necessary to go with the training and matched with the standard company operating procedures. So there might be some content development necessary. And then the other thing that I would add that we do for sure, and again, I consider this implementation best practice, is you have cycles. So 3 cycles, planned cycles. Your initiative for your initial implementation might be one thing, the other 2 are subsequent, right? Once you complete this one, you feed that back into the second one, revise the second one, go on to the second one. And you always have this cycle going, always have 3 cycles at any one given time. This way it gives you a North Star to point at versus just saying, we did the training, okay, we're done, let's see how you guys do. So you're monitoring. So all that to say, now back to the learning management system, I also use SharePoint and the playlist and things like that for certain clients. Works great.
It does.
Works great, but it's a lot of work.
Yes.
You got to get all your stuff lined up and the video created and whatnot. But on that side of things, post training implementation and maintenance implementation, you do need a mechanism like an LMS to keep things rolling.
Yeah, great stuff, great stuff. All right, so one last topic. And this is actually a hot topic. I've faced this topic almost since I was a CAD manager. Civil 3D came out. You can build all the perfect templates all you want, but CAD enforcement is the hottest topic, the biggest issue for any company. If you can't enforce it, then it'll never work to me. That's my ideology. Is like, I've been in companies where the company owner gave me full power to enforce it on the engineers, company owners, if they were in the CAD file, full range of power. And within 3 months, everybody was using it. People would be kicking and screaming for the first month and stuff, but after that, it was smooth sailing. But I've also been in companies where the owners didn't want to put their foot down, and then it leaves you to fight, the CAD manager fight the engineers. The engineers want to do their own, still do their own thing. They'll follow it if they want to follow it or not, And that's something I see in some companies, new companies. Well, I don't want to upset my employees, so we'll let them slowly get into it when they want to get into it. And it's like, well, you're never going to solve your issue here if you don't enforce it, And that's a big issue that I see in companies. Is like some of the owners don't want to put their foot down, and say, hey, these are the rules, these are the standards. Why aren't you following them? You have a CAD manager, you have training, you have all these emails telling, hey, this is what's supposed to be standard, but the employees don't follow it. But nothing's done, and I've seen issues where the rafter has to learn 4 different standards because it's 4 different engineers he worked for, and he gets frustrated, and he comes to the CAD manager and complains, and I go to the engineer like, no, I want it this way, and then you go to the owner, and the owner's like, well, he's the PE, he's stamping the sign sealing, and you're like, why am I here for then? What's my purpose? If no one's going to follow it, the designer's frustrated because he's have to follow the 4 engineers. The EIT is frustrated because he's trying to learn 4 different methods for 4 different engineers. The engineers are like, I'm the one sign sealing the plans. I'm going to do it my method, my way.
It's bad management.
So it is, I've seen it both ways, and it's a tough battle. And then you got multiple offices now, multiple owners. It's a hot topic that I've seen, and it's like, guys, it's going to take you forever, forever. Some companies it takes years,
Oh, absolutely.
Finally enforce it, fully enforce it. And so what is your thoughts about, how are you enforcing standards in your company employees? Is it a very tiptoe thing, or is like, hey, learn it or we'll find somebody else, that really wants to follow company standards?
my goal is to make it easy, so it's easier to follow.
Yeah.
So for one thing, we have a launcher that they're supposed to use to launch the product,
Yeah.
and that'll narrow it down to which profiles they can use. We have like 5 profiles, and so they have to use that profile.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Next month, when 2020 rolls out, we're gonna have another. We require everyone to set their coordinate system, and we have a dialog box for that. And in the past, it was like you had to go ask the surveyor, but we know where the surveyor should place the survey file.
Yeah.
So why don't we go get that information from the survey file? So we're taking that dialog box that sets the coordinate and adding a project component. So we go and we use the data shortcut system variable, which is used in data shortcuts behind the scenes, Civil 3D. And we go and find all of the projects. So the user is able to select the project that they want from the list. And then that automatically goes and finds the survey deliverables within that folder. And so then when they go to the set a coordinate system, it's already set for them based on the survey deliverables. And then there's another tab where they can set up their custom properties for the project, and those are all saved within the project, so they can reuse the data, right? So if we want them to follow this process, we want to make it easy. In the past, it was harder because they didn't have to set the custom properties.
Yeah.
They had to go ask someone what coordinate system to use, and now we're loading it for them. And it'll also attach that survey drawing as an XREF.
Yeah.
So they don't even have to think about it. And then it'll also save the drawing in the correct location.
Yeah.
So they pick which functional group they're in, let's say design,
Yeah.
and then they pick what they're drawing. Are they drawing an alignment, a corridor, a cross section?
Yeah.
And they can select it. And based on our file structure, it's going to put it into the correct file. So when they hit set coordinate zone, we're saving that file.
Yeah.
So now it has less of an opportunity for that employee to go rogue, because now we're telling them, hey, if you follow this pattern and make it easy, we're going to save it. And so hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier, so we don't have people putting it in James' folder, and it's always going to go into the alignments folder if they're doing an alignment.
So you got a lot of stuff set up, pre-set up, where it's hard for them to deviate.
So it makes it easy. So I don't have to enforce the standard. I just say, hey, follow the SOP, and you'll be fine. Don't try to create it.
Yeah.
And so that's to make it easy. So if you see a problem, try to make it easy. Try to solve the problem.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Todd, do you have any? Some CAD managers have, and they'll have no say so. I've been there with the CAD manager had no power. So.
I'm very, very fortunate to work for a company that gives everybody pretty much full reign. A lot of people think that it's not a good idea, but sometimes it is. In our case, it is. There's zero micromanagement, which gives a lot of morale to the workers. So they trust you a lot more. Having that type of environment, makes it a lot easier for us managers because they actually listen to you. Because you're not jumping down their throat about something.
Yeah.
You're explaining to them, well, you did it this way, you need to do it this way.
Yeah.
So try it again, and we'll see what happens the next time. We'll see what happens the next time.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it's the correct way.
Yeah.
So it's a different approach to things.
Yeah.
Especially with the company that large.
Yeah.
But it tends to work for us very, very effectively.
Do you have a problem with plans never looking the same though? It's like, okay,
Absolutely not.
So one set of plans look totally different than the second set of plans on a different office?
Absolutely not.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Now, when I first started there 3 years ago, that was part of my job was to get the other offices on the same page, doing the same thing and looking the same way.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be a very slow process. It was pretty quick for us. We're just very fortunate to have good people and good staff. It's just.
On the Revit side, it's I break it down to graphic standards and then process standards, right? So I think especially for a large company, and I'm just kind of piggybacking on that. For our size, it's a little different because we're agile and we're a team of 8, in total, or 5 to 8. And but for a large company, I can see how you need flexibility. You need to have some autonomy, and you have to have so from the Revit side of things, there shouldn't be a lot of autonomy from the graphic standards.
Yeah.
It is. It should be set up in multidiscipline firms. You have to have your core BIM leaders to make sure they're all set up right. So I think there's not a lot of flexibility in the graphic standards, but then again, there shouldn't be too many people in Revit monkeying around with that anyways. If you have everything set up right. So I think for Revit, it really comes down to the processes, because you have cardinal rules that processes like don't explode AutoCAD and Revit. That's cardinal rule. And you know, that's a KPI I want to see on a BI dashboard so I can find that person right away and nip it in the bud. But then there's other processes that require some thinking that we don't want to limit anybody. We need to have that autonomy. So in terms of like, how do you manage that? I think that, you know, obviously BIM guidelines is what I call mine, not standards, although the graphical standards are a subset, right? So BIM guidelines, a document that we know probably 20% of people actually read, but actually bringing out some of the, like, you know, in my guidelines, there's section 7 is just procedures, and the one that says don't explode, there's a video on that. Guess where it's at? It's on the LMS, right? And so we kind of make a joke out of that part, and by the time you're 2 weeks in, you know that it's this running thing, and you know it, right? You make a thing about it. So I think from a standard standpoint, for Revit, it's important to focus on the process standards, and that's what we try to do for our customers.
I know some companies that actually have like 3 stages of just looking through your stuff.
Yeah.
3 people looking at the CAD
From like
standard.
a QA/QC standpoint.
Yes, QA/QC, and they have 3 levels of QA/QC just on the CAD stuff, and the CAD and the plans. So one guy's looking at the CAD files, going through your sheet, looking at your CAD files. Another guy, when he prints the whole set, he's looking at QA/QC on just how the quality of work looks like on the plans. And then you got an engineer at the end looking at the actual design. So you have 3 stages of QA/QC. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of.
You know, I will add on the Revit side, there's this idea of, you know, one of the things that I didn't touch on is the fact that content and pull content from different systems and you guys have it. And I'm not getting paid by this company at all, but there is an app out there, Iconic BIM makes the Guardian, and it's an add-on that watches things in the background. So as things are happening, it's already catching it. So like the explode thing, even if it were to occur, it prevents it from happening, right? And it gives you, so there's like this autonomous BIM manager in the background, right? I mean, who wouldn't want that? So I think, you know, that's not something that I'm using currently, but I've seen it, and in theory, it looks fantastic. I've seen the demos, I know the guys, and I think it looks great, and I want to use it. I mean, who wouldn't want a 24/7 BIM guy, as they say in their marketing?
For sure.
You run the command, a little pop-up meat face pops up, and it disappears.
We actually put together a Cad Standards Committee, and it's a bunch of us power users, and you know, once a month we get together and discuss, you know, what's been going on, where we need to go, and all that. And it just kind of bleeds out into the rest of the you know, offices. It's been very successful for us.
Good. That's good. Well, it looks like I don't have any questions online here. We're going to wrap it up for our next session here in 10 minutes. So, but I want to thank y'all coming out. You know, talking about all these different topics and stuff. We have one more session coming in with the Autodesk team. So thank you for everyone that was logged into our event, and hopefully you enjoyed the session, and hope you're enjoying AU 2020. All right. Thank you. See you later. Bye.